Get after it now. Get after it now. You're clear.
All right, so I am at Iowa in the truck series of the Heat 5 video game. Going to try to lay down a decent lap here and then talk about the line I am using and talk about the setup. I have ran a 23.712. I am hoping to get something in the 23.7 range here on video. Then we can go and talk about the setup a little bit. Well, actually, I'll take you around the track real slow and talk about my markers. Then we'll talk about the setup. And then I have something I want to share at the end relative to wheel settings and stuff.
Keep it up.
And there was a 23.7 right off the bat. So let's slow this down and we'll talk about the markers on the track and stuff. I don't know that the line they've got here is the best suggested line. I feel like it's not a natural arc. I feel like I want to go maybe just a tick higher where maybe your left wheels are on the line and your right ones aren't, and I want to get out of the throttle probably about right here. The mark I use, and it's not a mark that you got to know where it's at more than anything, is that white line that is painted across the track in front of me there. That's my line, but if you wait till you see it, you're basically on top of it. You kind of got to develop a feel for saying, I know where that white line is, I'm going to stop there. You do have to crank the wheel quite a bit here, but I try to use that as my mark. I start off a little high, then I am going to come out and try to be as low as I can, and there are markers there. There are white lines painted down at the bottom that guide you into pit road. There's 3 lines, then further up there's 2 lines, and finally 1 line. I need to be back in the throttle before I hit those 3 marks, or else you're not going to get a decent lap, and it's probably about where I am at right here is the best place to get back in the throttle. If you can get back in the throttle this early and stay low by this yellow line, you're setting yourself up for a good lap. So coming on out of here, coming down the front straightaway, I'm trying to run a little below the suggested line. And then as we get down here, I'm actually going to work my way up into the suggested line, more or less. Turn 1 is very tough because there's not a great marker to use, and it's such a long, sweeping turn that it's really easy to not turn in at the right point, at the right arc, etc. I try to look at this thing down here, this white American ethanol, the paint with the green American ethanol signal in the middle of it. When I am coming through here, about the time I feel like I am even with the end of that white paint, and I'm going past it, is where I start to lift. So let's back up here so you can see what I'm talking about. That white paint down there, when I'm getting there and I think, oh, I'm about even with that, I start to lift. Again, you got to turn the wheel kind of hard, let the truck come down to the bottom. This is another one where I can use the analogy of a magnet. You start off up there and that yellow line is a magnet, and you get drawn to it as you get deeper into the corner until you're finally down by it. When you are here, about the end of the pit road wall, that's where I want to get back in the throttle. And when I get back in the throttle, I'm going to try to stay low coming out of the corner to where I am almost clipping the apron. And then just work my way up the track a little bit till I am out by the wall going into 3 and 4. So that is that stuff. That is the line I am using. Let's go into the garage and talk about the setup. And then there's one other thing I want to show at the end, so please stick around to the end after I have shown the setup. So I fooled around all over the place with this setup, struggled and struggled, finally came back to this is where I'm at. I can run the low 23.7s with it. I feel like there's a little bit more speed in it, but I'm either don't quite have the talent as a driver, or just haven't quite perfected the line, or some little tweak that'll get me down there. But I looked up what I ran in Heat 4, and I ran a 23.7 there, but it was a little higher. It was closer to 23.8. So this setup is just a tick faster than what we had in Heat 4. The rebound settings and bump settings, those are designed to help the car turn in specific areas. For instance, I was looking at the left rebound and the right bump to try to get the car to turn better in the entry to the corner and the middle of the corner. So that's an example of how you use those settings to address a specific part of the corner, be it entry, middle, or exit. I wound up going with a high front weight and high wedge setup. I typically don't do that. I tried to do my normal stuff where I've got a lower setup and just couldn't find the speed there. I was really struggling to get down even into the 23.8s. It just felt more stable, more comfortable, and more consistent with a higher front weight and wedge. So that is what I went with. The springs, not a lot to say there, and the tire pressures. The springs are pretty typical of what you see in a lot of setups. 1200 in the front, and then a right spring at 600, and a left spring anywhere from 450 to 550. That's typical of what you see in a lot of setups. Tire pressures are not that much different than the defaults. The tire wear is a little better. I went with got real aggressive on the left front camber because that doesn't wear as much, and that'll help the car turn. To counteract the fact that I've got such high front weight, I ran really high track bars. So that front weight and that wedge being high numbers are going to make the car tight. These track bars are going to loosen it up. The higher number you go, the looser it is. The left track bar affects corner entry. The right track bar affects corner exit. So that's the story on the track bars. Typically, if you have a high front weight and a high wedge, you have to have a high track bar to make the car turn. And I wound up the 411 gear. I fooled around with everything from a 389 to a 433. Found out this was really the best bet. So that is what I have got as far as setups. Now, there's one more thing I want to show here that I think is important, okay? Iowa, one of the problems you have is you're trying to get back on the throttle, you're trying to keep the car from getting loose, okay? So you're trying to do all that, and one of the things that happens is that you really fight at Iowa is when you get back on the throttle, the car wants to get loose, especially coming off of 2. So one of the things I did, which actually I experimented with it a lot and it helped my lap times, is I messed with the throttle sensitivity. So you may want to look at what your throttle sensitivity is when you're going into tracks like Iowa, Richmond, Martinsville, places where you kind of have to be easier back on the throttle coming out of the corner. So this is where I've got the throttle sensitivity. At tracks that are like 1.5 mile tracks like Texas or Chicago or Atlanta, I am way over here, like 2 clicks from the most sensitive. But I dial that back, and I actually found that it did help my lap times, because I think, and I can't prove this, but I think what's happening is when the throttle sensitivity is up, when you're pushing on the throttle, it's almost immediately going to full throttle. That's probably causing a little bit of tire spin or loss of grip in the game, and that's resulting in slower lap times. But if you decrease the sensitivity to put it more in the middle, or maybe if you're in the middle, you go down a little bit, you're going to have less of that, and you're going to get a better lap time because your tires are gripping more and spinning less. So just one final tweak I did to try to squeeze out as much speed as I can out of this setup. Hope you guys like it. Hope it's helpful. Any questions, leave it in the comments, or any other tracks you want to see, let me know, and I'll try to get a video up for it. Thank you guys so much for watching these videos. Do me a huge favor, like the video and subscribe to the channel. I love to see it when the videos get likes and when my subscriber base grows. Appreciate the support so much and all the great feedback you guys have given me. So with that, I will end this thing and say have